Okay, good evening, everyone. So today we will discuss about another service called auto scaling. So coming to this auto scaling is a service which can provide an ability to increase and decrease the resources according to the demand. Let us say if you have a demand increase, like load is getting increased on your server. So definitely we need more number of CPU and more number of RAM, right? So already we know how can we increase the CPU and memory in the same EC2 instance, which is called as a vertical scaling. But by using this auto scaling, we can increase the resources automatically according to the requirement. Let us say if it requires more number of CPUs and much RAM, it will provision new servers and it will add to under the load balancer and it will distribute the load across all the instances automatically. To understand better about the auto scaling, let us say you are planning to run some kind of online application or an online store, and you are expecting kind of like from Monday to Friday, you are expecting maximum 100 users at a time. But during the weekdays, you might expect like 175 users at a time. So to handle the 100 user request, it requires, let us say, 2 CPU and 4 GB of a RAM. Like to handle the first request, you require 2 CPU and 4 GB of a RAM. And to handle these many users, definitely it requires 4 CPU and 8 GB of a RAM. So while you're creating your instance in which you are going to maintain your online store, which requirement you will consider? Like 2 CPU, 4 GB of instance, or 4 CPU, 8 GB of instance? Obviously, we can go for 4 CPU and 8 GB of an instance. Let us say this EC2 instance got created. Let us say 4 CPU and 8 GB of a RAM. This can handle, assume that it can handle maximum 125 users. It can handle maximum 200 users at a time. This is the capacity of these resources. So if you create 4 CPU and 8 GB of a RAM, during the weekends or weekdays at any given point of time, your online store performance will be good, right? There will be no underperformance or something. Then what is the challenge here, or what is the disadvantage with this setup? During like Monday to Friday, as you are getting less than 100 users, you don't utilize all the 4 CPU and 8 GB of a RAM. You are enough with 2 CPU and 4 GB of a RAM. What will happen to the additional CPUs and additional RAM? They will kept idle, right? They are not getting used, but you will be charged because you already assign those many CPUs and memory. Automatically, you will get started charging for all the CPUs and RAM, irrespective of whether you are utilizing the resources or not. But Monday to Friday, we require only 2 CPU and 4 GB of RAM. That kind of a situation is called underutilization. Underutilization, in which we are going to pay the money without utilizing the resources. In this case, what if I go with creation of the instance with 2 CPU and 4 GB of RAM? During like Monday to Friday, there will be no issue. But on Saturday and Sunday, as you are getting more number of users and this server cannot handle more than 125 users, the application performance will goes down. The CPU will go like more than 90% or something, and your application performance will goes down. Sometimes even the users cannot load the web page also. This is called as overutilization. This is called as overutilization. That means we are utilizing the resources more than what you have allocated. So both the situations are not recommended for our requirement. One is performance downgrade and the one is overcharges, like paying the charges without any requirement. So in this case, how can we utilize the resources in an effective way? If you remember, in the EC2 concept, we have seen how to change the instance type, right? What is the challenge in that? before changing the instance type like upgrade or downgrade, you must shut down your EC2 instance. During that time, nobody can access your services running on that EC2 instance. To avoid such kind of situations, Amazon is providing you a feature called auto scaling for EC2 instances, which will automatically increase the resources and decrease the resources according to the demand. And this auto scaling is called as horizontal scaling. What is that horizontal scaling is? Initially, we will define how many instances you need. Let us say, as per the requirement, we will create only one server with 2 CPU and 4 GB of a RAM. On this, online store is getting running. Online store is running on this server. So it can handle maximum 125 users. So what I do is, by using the auto scaling, I will create a policy that whenever the CPU utilization is going more than 75%, that means we are about to utilize all the CPU. So create a new server. What it will do, it will create an exact replica of the same server. So the new server will be creating with the same resources and the same website which is running on that server. But what is the use of creating like this? Who will redirect all the users across both the servers? In front of that, we will maintain one load balancer. And automatically, whenever a new instance got created, that will be added under the load balancer. And the load will be equally distributed. If still the CPU is more than 75%, again, again, it will create one more server. Like this, how many instances can be created? That we can decide by providing a maximum number of servers we need. You can define this value. Okay, so it is running during Saturday and Sunday. Performance is good. On Monday, as the number of users are getting reduced, the CPU is coming like less than 75%. Automatically, it will identify that the CPU is less than the threshold value. We can call this as a threshold value. If the CPU is going more than 75%, new EC2 instance will be created. If the CPU is less than 75%, automatically it will start deleting existing instances. Assume that the CPU is at like 20%. So this instance got deleted. Then it will wait for some time. If still CPU is less than 20%, again it will be deleted. Still the CPU is less than 20%, then what will happen? It must be running, right? If it got deleted, no user can access your website. So we are going to define the minimum number of servers which has to be run even there is no user connected. If there are 0 users, how will access the first user? Nobody can access, right? That's why we have to define minimum number of servers to be running at any time and maximum number of servers we need. So that between these two limits, automatically the instances will be created and the instances will be deleted based on this threshold value. And how it is getting increased? Like this, the new instances are getting added. And this is called as scale out. Adding a new instance is called as a scale out. Whenever there is no CPU, it will delete the EC2 instances and the group will shrink, right? So that is called as scale in. Deleting an existing instance is called as a scale in, and creating a new instance is called as a scale out. So what type of auto scaling it is? This is called as horizontal scaling. If you are increasing the resources within the same EC2 instance, that is called as vertical scaling. But auto scaling will provide the horizontal scaling feature. The scaling will happen horizontally by adding a new instances or by deleting existing instances. That's why we call the auto scaling as a horizontal scaling, and creating a new instance is called as a scale out, and deleting an existing instance is called as a scaling. And this auto scaling contains two different components. One is a launch configuration and one is auto scaling group. So here, whenever the new instance is getting created, how it knows that which application to be installed or which application to be configured. Amazon don't know which software you are using, right? For that reason, what you have to do is, first you have to create one EC2 instance. In this, you have to install each and every component, whatever you need. And then you have to create one AMI. By using this AMI, you are going to configure this auto scaling part. Whenever a new instance is getting created, this particular AMI will be used. As it already contains all your components, this server will be ready to use. No need to manually log in or no need to do anything manually. Everything will be automatically done. Okay, so auto scaling can be used to increase the capacity of your group of servers according to the demand. So auto scaling is a service which will create or delete, or I can say, which allows to increase or decrease the capacity of EC2 instances based on the demand. Based on the demand. That means based on the threshold value, a new EC2 instance will be created automatically when the load increase, and existing instance will be deleted if there is no load. And we configure the minimum number of instances and maximum number of instances in the auto scaling, so that the number of instances cannot increase beyond the maximum number of instances. And even at no load, minimum number of instances will run, or you can say will be running. Auto scaling has two components. Like in the load balancer, we have a load balancer and target group, right? The auto scaling has two components. One is launch configuration, and the second one is auto scaling group. And the second one is auto scaling group. So before discussing about these components, let us check a simple point in the previous discussion. So here we have a load balancer, right? Can we use the auto scaling without a load balancer? So it will create instances, but is there any use? No, you can create 10 instances. Always the users will be connected to the first server only. There is no mechanism to distribute the load, right? So without using a load balancer, if you deploy or if you implement the auto scaling, the load cannot be distributed across all the EC2 instances. So always it is mandatory to use the auto scaling to take the advantage of the auto scale. So in these two components, let us discuss about each and every configuration, how they will be implemented, or what is the purpose of these two components. So this launch configuration is used to create the EC2 instance. Okay, first thing, like what we call that, So launch configuration is used to define how to create the EC2 instance. What is the meaning of how to create? So whenever you would like to create an EC2 instance, you have to select a different options, right? All those options we are going to mention in this launch configuration. So the launch configuration contains Amazon machine image, because Amazon machine image is required to create the EC2 instance, right? Amazon machine image, which is called as AMI. You need to mention the security group, which security group to be used. You have to mention the key pair, which key pair to be used at the time of creating the EC2 instance. And what else we need? Basically, we need subnet and networks, right? But that we don't configure in the launch configuration. That we have to configure in auto scaling group. And what else we have to select? These are the basic components. Like Amazon don't know which Amazon machine image to be used at the time of creating the EC2 instance. So you have to create your required Amazon machine image and you have to include in the launch configuration. Simple thing. Launch configuration is used to how to create the EC2 instance, and auto scaling group is used to when to create EC2 instance. At what time the EC2 instance to be created, or at what time the EC2 instance to be deleted. That will be defined in the auto scaling group. Keep some space here so that if we miss some component, we can add at the time of doing the practical. And then we have to discuss about auto scaling group. So auto scaling group is used to decide when to create a new EC2 instance and when to delete an existing EC2 instance. Like at what time we would like to delete the instance and at what time you would like to create the EC2 instance. That will be defined in the auto scaling group. So in the auto scaling group, we have to select the VPC, which is nothing but network, and the EC2 instances to be created in which subnet. And then we have to decide at what time you would like to create a new EC2 instance. When to create the new what is the process of creation of the new EC2 instance? The scale out. Scale out means create new EC2 instance. And we will define scale in, like delete an existing instance. And we have to define scaling policy. Actually, these two will be covered in the scaling policy. In that scaling policy, we have to define minimum number of instances. Initially with how many, what is the minimum number of instances to be running at any given point of time? That is called as a minimum number of instances. And then maximum number of instances. What is the maximum number of instances you would like to create? If I set maximum as 5, if the CPU is not getting down, still it will not create more than that 5. Even if your CPU is more than 90%, it will not create a new EC2 instance more than what you mentioned in the maximum number of instances. And then we have one more thing called desired capacity. Actually, here also, this is called as a minimum capacity. But for understanding purpose, I'm using the term called number of instances, minimum capacity. In the brackets, you can write down like number of instances. This is a maximum capacity. The desired capacity means at the time of creating the auto scaling group, initially with how many EC2 instances you would like to create. You can select 4 or whatever it is, that doesn't matter. Automatically, if the requirement doesn't meet, it will delete the existing EC2 instances and it will maintain the minimum number of instances. Always the best recommended procedure is the minimum capacity and the desired capacity will be always same. Okay, right. So here we will discuss about few terms here. The first one is the scale out. Scale out is a process of creating a new EC2 instance. And then we have a scale in. It is a process of deleting an existing EC2 instance. Minimum capacity, minimum number of EC2 instances to be running all the time, like even if there is no load. Even if there is a zero load also, the minimum number of instances will be running. Maximum capacity, maximum number of EC2 instances can be created by the auto scaling group. Auto scaling group will never ever create more than the maximum capacity, maximum number of instances which we mentioned. Finally, the desired capacity. What might be the desired capacity? Desired capacity is the number of EC2 instances required to meet the load. Auto scaling will automatically define that based on the load, it required these many EC2 instances. And we have another term called actual capacity. Actual capacity is the number of EC2 instances running at that time. Right now, if there are 4 EC2 instances are running, that 4 is called as the actual capacity. Desired capacity means if the CPU is getting increased, automatically what AWS will do is the desired capacity will be +1. Right now, the desired capacity is 3. Then automatically AWS will add +1 so that the number of actual instances will be increased by desired capacity. So here we have it, write down a note. Auto scaling group always match the number of match the actual capacity with the desired capacity by creating or deleting the EC2 instances. I will give you the example of that so that we can understand better. So here we have totally 4 different terms in the capacity, right? Or we can say, right, let us say we created one auto scaling group with a minimum 2, maximum 6, desired 2 initially. So there is another component called actual capacity. There is another component called actual capacity. So automatically what it will do, it will create 2 instances, and we created a threshold value as CPU at 65%. What we'll do is whenever the CPU is going, okay, so like this we created. So 2 instances got created. Now how many instances are running? 2. So actual capacity will be 2. Now the CPU is going more than 65%. Let us say the CPU is at 70%. Then what will happen? Another instance to be created. Now the question is how the new EC2 instance will be created. Whenever the actual actual value is more than the threshold value, what Amazon will do is Amazon will do the desired capacity plus 1. So what will happen? This will become 3. So now there is a difference between the actual and desired capacity, right? Whenever there is a difference between the actual capacity and desired capacity, auto scaling group will match the actual capacity with the desired capacity. What will happen in this case? If it will become 2 plus 1, then it will equal to the desired. So actual requirement is 1 more. Still the CPU is more than 70%. So desired capacity will become plus 1. So it will become 4. It will add 1. After some time, the CPU is at like 50%. Then what will do? It observe that the CPU is less than the threshold value. So it will adjust minus 1. So this will become 3. So here the total is 4, right? There is a difference. So how the actual capacity will be equal to the desired capacity? If we do minus 1. So it will mark that it will looks like 3. So that 1 instance will be deleted. This is how the new instances will be created and deleted. Whenever there is a difference between actual and desired capacity, then auto scaling will perform either scale out or scale in to match the actual capacity with the desired capacity. But in a layman terms, we can say that whenever the threshold is getting exceeded, the CPU is getting more than what you have mentioned, then a new instance will be created. And whenever the CPU is less than the threshold value, automatically the existing EC2 instance to be deleted. Okay, so now here what we are going to do is, first we have to create one EC2 instance in which we will host a website, because we need to check that the website is getting hosted on the new servers or not. So from here, we will create one AMI. This is the AMI we have to use. The first step is we have to create launch configuration. And then we have to create auto scale. While we are creating the auto scaling, what we do is we will select minimum number of instances to be 2. Desired, we will select 2. Maximum, I will select 6. Only we will configure these 3. And the threshold value, I will select CPU is greater than 60%. And here we require a load balancer also, right? To create the load balancer, you have to create a target group. You have to create a target group. This is a target group. And you have to create one application load balancer. Okay. So then once you launch the auto scaling group, because here there are 2 servers, it will be created with 2 EC2 instances. Okay, so automatically the traffic will be distributed across. If you are able to increase the CPU, then it will start creating new servers also, but it will never go beyond maximum 6. It will never create the 7th EC2 instance because the maximum is the 6. Once the CPU is coming less than 60%, automatically it will delete the existing EC2 instances, but it will maintain the minimum number of EC2 instances all the time. It never go less than the minimum number of instances. What will happen if I delete all? If I delete all the 3 instances, what will happen? It will check that the actual capacity is 0, but the desired capacity is 2. If you delete all the things, what will happen to the actual capacity? 0. So there is a difference between the actual and desired, right? So automatically it will create two new EC2 instances. So this auto scaling is more fault tolerant, like fault tolerant. If something went wrong, easily you can restore that, easily you can recover that particular issues. And it will save some cost also, because no need to, what we call that, no need to provision more resources at the time we don't need those many resources. According to the requirement, automatically the new EC2 instances will be created, and whenever you don't need those many resources, the existing instances will be deleted. So this is called as a scaling, right? This auto scaling supports different types of a scaling. There are different types of scalings available. Generally, we prefer to go for auto scaling, but we need to know about what are the different types of scalings also. One is automatic scaling. The second one is manual scaling. The third one is scheduled scaling. Fourth one is predictive scaling. That predictive scaling is the new one. So coming to the automatic scaling, scaling and scale. Okay, I think it is better to write down at the bottom. First, coming to the automatic scaling. Scale in and scale out will happen automatically based on the scaling policy. We have to define a scaling policy with some threshold value. Whenever the actual value is more than threshold value, automatically the new instance will be created or an existing instance will be deleted. That is what automatic scaling is. Then what is a manual scaling? What might be the manual scaling? In the manual scaling, we have to perform the scale in and scale out manually. How to do it manually? That doesn't mean that you need to create the instances manually. You have to modify the desired capacity manually. Right now, the desired capacity is 2. So 2 instances are running. If you would like to increase by one more server, you have to go to edit and you have to change the desired capacity with 3. So automatically a new EC2 instance will be created. If you change that to 4, that will be automatically created with one more instance and the number of instances to be 4. That is what the manual scaling is. And the most important one is scheduled scaling. What might be the scheduled scaling? What might be the scheduled scaling? Let us say every day at 6 p.m. suddenly there are like more number of users are accessing your online store. Every day that is happening at 6 p.m. So generally what will happen? Whenever the users started accessing your website, then your auto scaling group will identify that the CPU is going more than so and so value. Then a new instance will be created. To do all these things, it will take some time, right? During the short term, there will be performance downgrade. To avoid that, what we can do is you can schedule a scale in and scale out. Let us say the load is happening at like between 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. every day. What I can do is I will schedule scale out at 5:45 p.m. every day, and I will schedule scale in at 9:15 p.m. every day. So even there is no load at 5:45 p.m., automatically new instance will be created well in advance. It don't wait for the actual CPU is going more than the threshold value of 65%. Like we configured automated snapshots, right? What will happen that every day at specific time, automatically the backup will be created. In the same way, we can configure the scheduled scaling also. Without monitoring the values at that particular scheduled time, automatically the new instance will be created and existing instances will be deleted. That is what the scheduled scaling is. By using the scheduled scaling, we can schedule the scale in and scale out based on the requirement. Let us say, I will give you one best example for this scheduled scaling. Let us say today is Thursday, right? So I am going to run some offers or discounts on my online store from Saturday early morning at 1 a.m. Definitely, I know that at that from that particular time onwards, more number of users will start using my website, right? So that instead of waiting for the time and manually do that, before going to sleep or before today on Thursday itself, I can schedule a scale out to be happen at 12:45 p.m. So 15 minutes before the loads get started, it will create additional servers, and the discount sale is going to end at Sunday midnight 12 a.m. Sunday midnight, so that I can configure the scale in at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. So automatically it will create new servers and it will delete an existing servers based on the schedule. That is what the scheduled scaling means. What is the predictive scaling? What is the meaning of a predictive or prediction? A guess, right? Guess. So based on the previous values of the load, let us say your server is running from the last 1 month. So every day the data will be recorded, right? Based on the previous day's data, it will predict that when the load will get increased or when the load will be reduced. Based on that, automatically the new instances will be created and existing instances will be deleted. So in the predictive scaling, based on the previous data or based on the previous usage of that EC2 instance, auto scaling will predict when to scale out and scale it. It will predict that, okay, today at 9 p.m., the server might expect more number of users and the CPU might get increased. So that before that particular time, the scale out will happen and it will predict that tomorrow morning from 3 a.m. there will be no load. Automatically the scaling will happen. That is what the predictive scaling means. So now we will see all these things by doing a practical. Okay, so before proceeding with the creation of the auto scaling, are you guys clear or any questions on this? Okay, so what we do is, I can say that create auto scaling for website which is running on EC2 instance with the below details. So what are the below details is the minimum capacity. Minimum capacity, I will go with 2, because if you have only 1, if that one has some issue, you will not get high availability. Desired capacity 2, max capacity 6, threshold value CPU is greater than 60%. CPU is greater than 60%. These are the things I have to configure for the auto scaling. So first step, what we have to do is create an EC2 instance and install all required components and host a simple website. Then create an AMI from the above EC2 instance and let us name it as auto scaling -AMI, because otherwise auto scaling don't know with which AMI the EC2 instance to be created. Without selecting an AMI, you cannot create the EC2 instance. Then create launch configuration. Wait. I think before creating the launch configuration, we have to create the load balancer part also. Create a target group. Create a target group, and I can say that auto scaling -TG. Then create an ALB. ALB means application load balancer using the above target group. Let us name the load balancer as auto scaling -ALP. Then create launch configuration, auto scaling launch config, and then create auto scaling group and let us name it as auto scaling a group. These are the steps we have to do to deploy a website using auto scaling. If you use the auto scaling, automatically the instances will be created and deleted based on the scaling. So in this auto scaling, we have to create a scaling policy. So here also you have to write down like scaling policy to be automated scaling, not manual scaling or scheduled scaling. Later, I will show you how to do a manual scaling and how to do a scheduled scaling also. But in general, if you have a requirement to use the auto scaling, we will use the automated scaling policy only. So let me get into our Amazon account. So let me go to the EC2. So yesterday we have hosted one website, right? In the same way, I will create one EC2 instance and I will host a website and I will create an AMI. Okay, right. So let me launch Linux EC2 instance. You can repeat the same steps to create an EC2 instance and to install a website. So just I will quickly, I will create that because we know how to do that. I will name it as web server. You can use any name, that doesn't matter. Key pair. So in the what security group we have to use or what ports we have to open in that EC2 instance. There is a Linux instance. So you have to open SSH protocol and we are hosting a website. So you have to open 80 and 443 also. The same way like how we did in the last session. Just you can go back there and you can see the steps. Now the instance is getting created. So once it got created, we need to log in and we need to set up that instance with the website. Let me log in using the private key. So I logged in with EC2-user and I will switch to the root so that I can execute any command without using the sudo command. So first one, yum update. It seems there is no pending updates. Then I need to install the web server. Then service httpd start, chk config httpd on. Okay, let me check. Okay, it is running. Then what we have to do, we have to create I can write down like welcome to the auto scale. Let me save it. We are done. Let me check whether the website is accessible or not. Yes, the website is accessible. Now we need to create the AMI. How to create the AMI from an EC2 instance? How to create AMI from this EC2 instance? Select the EC2 instance. Then click on actions. There is an option called image and templates. Click on create image. Already we have seen that in the EC2 concept. Click on create image. Let me give some name, auto scaling AMI. Give some description. Scroll down and click on create image. So that will take some time to create the image. Let us say like 3 to 4 minutes, depends on the size. Where to check that AMI process, whether that AMI got created or not? Images, where it is? Okay, so under the images, you can find out an option called AMIs. Click on the AMIs and you can see the list of AMIs available on your account. So this is the one which we created just now. Okay, let me remove the other ones just to avoid the confusion. Okay, it seems they are not available. Okay, anyways, this is the one. What is the status? Still pending. So you have to wait, still that status is available. Okay. So what else we have? What is the next step? After creating the AMI, what is the next step? ALB, right? So we have to create the target group and load balancer. While it is getting created, let us create the target group and let us create the load balancer. So in the same EC2 service, if you scroll down, you can find out an option called target groups under load balancing. Click on the target groups. Create target group. Select instances. Target group name. I will say auto scaling -TG. HTTP 80. So advanced health check settings, same as like what we configured in the last session. I am not changing anything. So healthy threshold 5, unhealthy threshold 2, timeout 5. Interval, I would like to reduce the time interval. Like every 7 seconds, it will monitor the health of the EC2 instances added into the target group. Click on next. So what I have to do here? This one, why? Because once I create the AMI, I don't need this instance. I will delete that. Once I create the EC2 instance, I will delete this running web server. I don't need that because all my EC2 instances will be created by the auto scaling group. If you create something manually, then why we need auto scaling? I created this EC2 instance only to capture the AMI. Once I got the AMI, I will delete this EC2 instance. So even if I add now, there is no use, right? In the next 5 minutes, this instance will not be available no longer. That will be deleted. What I'm doing is I'm going to create an empty target group. Because the EC2 instances created by the auto scaling group to be added to this target group, right? That will be automatically added by your auto scaling group itself. Just we need to mention that to which target group the instances to be added. So we created the auto scaling group. Sorry, we created the target group. Now we have to create the load balancer. Click on the load balancers under load balancing. Create load balancer. Application load balancer, click on create. So let us give a name, auto scaling dash ALB. Then scheme to be internet facing. Otherwise, the load balancer cannot be accessible from the internet. Then network mapping, select the VPC. You can select all your subnets, like availability zones, in which subnets you would like to create these EC2 instances. I will select all. There is no problem if you select all availability zones and subnets. So security group. Which security group to be added to this particular application load balancer? First, what is security group? Which will allow the traffic, right? What kind of traffic to be allowed to the load balancer? SSH. Why? HTTP and HTTPS. You don't log into the Linux machine using the load balancer, right? We access the websites running on the EC2 instances through the load balancer. Websites can be accessible using 80 and 443 ports. So I will select the security group, which will allow HTTP and HTTPS. Then scroll down here and select the target group under the listener configuration. And scroll down and click on create load balancer. So load balancer got created and the load balancer is pointing to the empty target group. If I try to access the load balancer, you will get bad gateway or some kind of error because there is no website running. Now we can proceed with our auto scaling creation. But before creation, let us check that the AMI is available or not. Yes, the AMI is available. Now the next step is we have to create the launch configuration. In the same EC2, you can see launch configurations under the auto scaling. Click on the launch configurations under auto scaling. Click on create launch configuration. I will use a name, launch configuration dash auto scaling. So Amazon machine image. Which Amazon machine image you would like to use? From the drop down, you can select the one which we just created, auto scaling dash AMI, and which instance type you would like to create. Here we will go with t2.micro because that is a free tier eligible. So let me search t2.micro. Click on choose. And on-demand instance or spot instance. I would like to go with on-demand instance. So don't select this one. If you select this option, the instance will be created as a spot instance. Then would you like to enable detailed monitoring? If yes, you have to check this box. If you don't need the detailed monitoring, no need to select that. But it is recommended to enable detailed monitoring for the auto scaling. The reason is, if you enable the detailed monitoring, your EC2 instance will be monitored for every 1 minute. Otherwise, it will be monitored every 5 minutes. That is the difference between the basic monitoring and detailed monitoring. Then scroll down. You have to select an select a security group for the EC2 instances, right? Which security group you have to select? The one which will allow the SSH, HTTP, and HTTPS. If you don't have any security group, you can select create new security group and you can create a new security group also. Then scroll down, key pair. Which key pair you would like to use? Choose an existing key pair and I will select my existing key pair. Then I will select the acknowledge and then click on create launch configuration. Now the launch configuration got created. Now we have to create auto scaling group. While creating the auto scaling group, you have to select the launch configuration. So whenever the CPU is going more than 60% or whatever we configured here, 60%, what it will do is it will trigger the launch configuration to create new EC2 instance. Whatever the options you included in the launch configuration, by using those options, a new EC2 instance will be created. Okay, so click on the auto scaling groups under auto scaling. Then here click on create auto scaling group. So auto scaling group name, I will give the name as auto scaling group. So here what it is showing, launch template, but what we created, launch configuration. That's why here you cannot see your launch configuration. So here you can see there is another option called switch to launch configuration, right? Click on switch to launch configuration so that it will allow you to select the launch configuration for your auto scaling group. From the drop down, select your auto launch configuration. So you can see whatever the options you included in the launch configuration. This AMI, security group, instance type, and key pair. Then click on next. In which VPC you would like to create. Actually, we have only one VPC. So you have to select that only. And in which subnets you would like to create. Would you like to create across all or only one or two? Depends on your requirement. You can select all your subnets. I selected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But totally we have 6, right? Even you can select the 6th one also. So the created EC2 instances will be spread across all the subnets. Then click on next. Would you like to use a load balancer with the auto scaling? Yes. If you don't use, there is no use of creating more instances whenever there is a high load. So here already we have an existing load balancer, right? That's why I will select attach to an existing load balancer. And then here, what type of load balancer we have? Classic load balancer or application load balancer? Application load balancer. So select the first option, which is choose from your load balancer target group. This is for classic load balancer. If you have a classic load balancer, then you have to select this one. But we have application load balancer. So select the first option, and from the drop down, you have to select the target group of that particular load balancer. Then scroll down. So here there is a health check grace period, but reduce it by 60 seconds. Otherwise, every 300 seconds, it will check the health of your EC2 instances. So whenever something is going wrong, it will take 5 minutes to create the new EC2 instance. But in the real time, 5 minutes is okay. But for practice purpose, we cannot wait 5 minutes, right? That's why I am reducing it to the 60 seconds. Then scroll down and click on next. So desired capacity, what is our requirement? 2. Minimum capacity 2. Maximum capacity 6. Minimum it will maintain 2 instances. Desired capacity means at this time it will create with 2 EC2 instances. Based on the load, the desired capacity can be increased or decreased. That depends on the threshold value. So we have to create a scaling policy. This scaling policy will define when to create new instance and when to delete an existing instance. If you would like to do the manual scaling, no need to select this one. Directly you can proceed for the next. But we are planning for the automated scaling, right? So select target tracking scaling policy under the scaling policies. Select the target tracking scaling policy. Don't change anything here. Make sure that the metric type is average CPU utilization and target value to be 60 seconds. Sorry, 60%. And no need to mention the percentage here. Don't mention percentage. Just you have to mention the value. Because here we selected the CPU utilization. Always that will be calculated in the percentage. So just enter the threshold value, which is 60. So here there is a option called warm up. What is that warm up? Once the instance got created, it will take some time to completely up and running, right? That is called as a warm-up period. So you can mention that what will be the warm-up period. I will say like 120 seconds. That depends on like how big your server is. During these 2 minutes, it will not be added into the service. It will wait for 2 minutes. Then the instance will be added into the service and it will start providing the service. And click on next. Don't change any other values. Click on next. So here you can add a notification. What is this notification? Whenever a new instance got created or whenever an existing instance got deleted, you will receive the notifications. Click on add notification. Click on create topic. Here you have to give your email address, the same as how we created the billing alarm. In the initial classes, we have given a billing alarm, right? Wait. So here you have to give the name. I will say auto scaling notification. Here the email address. So in these kind of events, you will receive a notification. Whenever a new instance got created, whenever an existing instance got deleted, or whenever the new instance launch got failed, or whenever the deletion of the instance got failed, you will receive the notification. Then click on next. So here you can add some tags. I will show you a tag. What is this tag? This tag will be added to your EC2 instances. So name, I will say auto scaling. So all your new EC2 instances will get this particular tag. You can add multiple tags also. Location Hyderabad or production, yes, backup, yes, whatever you need, just you can use that. So here you can see this tag will be automatically added to the new instances. Click on next. Here you can review all the options. Click on create auto scaling group. Once it is done, automatically 2 new EC2 instances will be created. And to your added email address, you will receive a subscription confirmation notice. You have to subscribe to that particular notification. You have to subscribe to that particular notification. So here you can see, if you click this confirm, then only you will start receiving the emails. Otherwise, you don't receive any email notifications. Okay. So if you go to the EC2, you can see 2 instances got created. And what I said, those 2 will be automatically added to the auto scaling group, right? So the first instance I got deleted, like the one which we use to create the AMI. So I mentioned that whatever the EC2 instances got created by the auto scaling will be added to the target group. Let us go to the target group and let us check that the 2 auto scaling instances got registered to the target group or not. If they were not added, there is no use of the auto scaling group, because every time the instance got created, we cannot log in and we cannot manually add that into the target group, right? So let me go to the target groups, which is available under load balancing. This is the target group. Click on that. And you can see how many targets are there? 2. Already 2 targets got added. And if you access the load balancer URL, this is the load balancer DNS name, right? If you go to the load balancers, you can see your application load balancer DNS name. What you can expect? Welcome to the auto scaling. Now, what will happen if I delete one EC2 instance? If I delete one EC2 instance from the auto scaling group, what will happen? Let me go to the auto scaling groups. This is our auto scaling group, right? So what is the number of instances now? 2. Desired capacity 2. Always this actual capacity will be matched to the desired capacity. I will show you here. Now I deleted one EC2 instance, right? Automatically it will identify that the instance got deleted and it will try to match minimum number of servers. The desired capacity will be running at this particular time. So here, if you select the auto scaling group, there is one tab called activity, right? If you click on the activity, you can see what is happening. What happened? A user request created an auto scaling group, and hence it created the number of instances from 0 to 2. That's what we got already. Now you can see there is a difference between the desired capacity and the actual capacity, because we deleted one instance, right? So actual capacity is 1 and the desired capacity will be 2. So that it will create one new EC2 instance to match the actual capacity with the desired capacity. So what happened here in the EC2 instances? Let me check. The EC2 instance got terminated or not. If it got terminated within 60 seconds, it will identify that there are no 2 servers running, and it will automatically create a new server in the auto scaling group. How many servers are running now? 1. So automatically it will be added by one more EC2 instance. There are some tools available. By using those tools, if you are able to increase the CPU, like simulate the CPU to 100%, you can see that all the 6 servers will be created. So let me check what is happening. So if you see the refresh, what happened here? An instance was taken out of service in response to an EC2 health check, indicating it has been terminated or stopped. One EC2 instance is not passing health. It is unhealthy. So that's why it is an instance was started, that means created in response to a difference between the desired and actual capacity, and increasing the capacity from 1 to 2. What is the status here? What is the status? Pre-in service. The instance will be in pre-in service for 120 seconds. After 120 seconds, the status will be modified to in service, because we selected that warm-up period will be 120 seconds. During that 120 seconds, this EC2 instance cannot be added as in service. Okay, so if I go to our EC2 instance and if I refresh the page, you can see that there was one EC2 instance got created. You can see 2 instances are running. What will happen if I delete both instances? 2 instances will be created. Automatically that will be created. Now the question is how to clean up this. Because if I delete 2 instances, automatically 2 instances will be created. So you have to delete the auto scaling group. But we haven't checked whether the new instances will be created according to the load or not, right? For that reason, what I do is, we will keep this as is. In the tomorrow, we will try to use some third-party tool to increase the CPU on our EC2 instances. Or, okay, it's already 7:20, but to get that average CPU, it will take a lot of time. We have to wait for minimum 10 minutes to check that the CPU, the new instance got created, because the CPU is more than 60%. So in the tomorrow session, we will check that by increasing the CPU manually, whether the new instances are getting created or not, and maximum how many instances will be created, like maximum 6 only or beyond that. And then we will reduce the CPU below 60%. And we have to observe that the new instances will be deleted automatically. And then we will see the scheduled scaling also. We will remove automatic scaling and we will configure a scheduled scaling, and we will see as per the schedule, the new instances are getting created or not. Okay, that the remaining part we can complete in the tomorrow's session. Okay, so as of now, are you guys clear or any questions on this auto scaling? We are not yet done with the auto scaling, but whatever we have completed as of now, is that clear or any questions? Okay, so if you guys are clear, let us stop the session and let us continue tomorrow. Okay, thank you everyone. We'll continue tomorrow.